Hello everyone, welcome to SSM Sharda Educations. So in the series of weekly current affairs, we have come to second week of July now. So in the second week of July, in this video, we'll be seeing current affairs related to geography, environment and science and technology. Okay, so first we'll be seeing current affair related to geography. So one current affair, what is this? Offshore wind energy in India. So what is this offshore wind energy in India? See, generally we talk about offshore, onshore, all these things. So what is that? See, the ministry strategy paper for establishment of offshore wind energy products demonstrates that the government is becoming serious. What is it? Offshore is out of the shore. So out of the shore is in the water. You can see in the picture. So in this picture you can see where is the wind. It is on the water. Maybe it is in the ocean, okay, sea or near the shore, whatever it is called as offshore. So it is becoming very serious. See, one good thing about this is it is having a very less land consumption. Okay, so this land occupying is very less. That is most important thing because there won't be need of any evacuation process or there won't be any issue related to other accidents or anything like that. So this is one important thing when it comes to offshore wind energy. So why India needs offshore wind energy is abundant offshore wind potential we have. We know that we are a peninsular country, right? So almost the southern part of India itself is having so much potential of having offshore wind energy. They can play a huge role in desired climate commitment and energy security goals. Do you understand? Instead of going for fossil fuels, so much potential we have already which are waiting to be utilized, which will help us in terms of also climate commitment and energy security goals. Because we know that green energy, I mean the wind energy is one of the renewable energy, and also that they are also one more thing we have to know is they are renewable energy and they are also a form of green energy. Because while while this electricity is generated to green wind energy, there is no any emission. So that is why it is called as green energy. Okay. In India, where land is limited, I told you land is a very limited resource. So when land is limited and population is increasing, there is a very high demand for land. The population density is increasing. In that case, this land occupying has to be reduced, where this offshore wind energy is a very good idea. Okay. So in the first week, we saw about floating solar power plant in Telangana. In that also I mentioned about this term of land occupying. Here also I am mentioning the same. Okay. Yes. So that what happens, large wind farm positioned over water bodies will be vital because they consume very less land. They occupy very less land. So about offshore wind energy today typically comes from two types. This can be a question. One is onshore wind farms. Onshore wind farm is any farm on land is called as onshore wind farm. Okay, so every state, most of the states, southern states have wind power plants. So this onshore wind farm is what we have usually, and they are large installation of wind turbines located on land. And next is offshore, which is located in the bodies of water. It necessarily need not be just ocean. It can be any body of water. Okay, so offshore wind energy refers to deployment of water inside the water bodies. They utilize the sea winds to generate electricity. So these wind farm either used fixed foundation turbines or floating wind turbines are also possible. Okay, so both these things are there. So fixed foundation turbine is built in shallow water. Why? Because foundation means it has to reach the floor, ocean floor. So deep floor foundation is not possible in many places, which can be more costly or it has its own defects. But shallow waters can hold foundation, fixed foundation turbine. But when it goes to floating wind turbine, it can be in the deeper waters also, and it can be anchored in the seabed. Like there will be a chain connected with the dead weight which is anchored to the floor, and then you have the turbine floating. Okay, so floating wind farms are still in their infancy, that is infancy is just developing. So offshore wind farms must be at least 200 nautical miles from the shore and 50 feet deep in the ocean. This is a very important statement because UPSC loves asking at least one statement related to these nautical miles from the shore, about numbers at least. So 200 nautical miles from the shore and 50 feet deep in the ocean. So offshore wind turbines produce electricity which is returned to the shore through cables buried in the ocean floor. Now we know this cables buried in the ocean floor are very common, which are used for various purposes. It can be for telecommunication, internet transmission. There are many things where this cables buried under the ocean floor are becoming very common. The National Offshore Wind Energy Policy has been notified in October 2015 to provide a legal framework for this offshore wind sector in India. 2015 itself, it has been notified, but now they are becoming very serious. Our country is becoming very serious. Wind resource measurement campaign deploying light detection and ranging LIDARs along with geophysical, geotechnical and oceanographic studies in the selected off coast of Gujarat and Tamil Nadu needs to be carried out. You know, these two places have very good potential for offshore wind, wind mills. Okay, next. So the government has planned to develop the first offshore wind energy product of 1 gigawatt. This can be a question. Wind energy product of 1 gigawatt project has been identified zone B of the off coast of Gujarat in a commercial scale. So first has been planned in Gujarat, and interested private players can also carry out the required studies, surveys for the establishment of offshore wind projects in the exclusive economic zone of India under the guidelines for the offshore wind power assessment study surveys issued by National Institute of Wind Energy. Okay, so very important. The first, I am repeating the points, the first is going to be set at coast of Gujarat with a capacity of 1 gigawatt, and there has been studies related to it like geophysical, geotechnical, oceanographic studies are going to be take place in Gujarat and Tamil Nadu. It has been notified in October 2015 itself, but now they are becoming very serious. So how does it work? I am repeating. There are two types of wind energy as of now, onshore and offshore. So onshore is something you have the windmill on the land, offshore is on the water body. Mostly it is considered to be oceans and sea, sometimes in the rivers or some places also. Second, so in this offshore there are two types, one is fixed foundation turbine, next is floating. So fixed means usually in the shallow water. Fixed is usually in the shallow water, that is 50 feet deep. Floating is in the deep waters. Okay, fine. So next, benefits of offshore wind energy generation. What are those? So benefits of offshore wind parks are having numerous plus points, benefits compared to the onshore. What are those is? So they are more efficient compared to onshore ones because fewer offshore turbines are required to produce the same capacity of energy as compared to onshore ones. Why? See, wind, the flow of wind on land is obstructed by many things, can be both artificial and natural things. But when it comes to oceans, you don't have many structures to stop the flow of wind, which so that the velocity of wind will be higher compared to onshore places. This is number one. So they are more efficient. Instead of having so much turbines, fewer turbines give us the required electricity. Wind speed over water bodies is high and consistent in direction. As a result, offshore wind farm generate more electricity per installed capacity. Okay, so wind is stronger during the daytime, so it ensures the electricity generation when consumer demand is at the highest. Generally in ocean, the what happens is the wind speed velocity is higher during the daytime, that is when the demand is also higher. At night time, we know very well that from evening to night there is more consumption of electricity due to lights, everything. But at the night time we know very well there is very less consumption because people sleep. So that is why when there is a demand, there is a higher generation of electricity. So offshore wind farms have a higher capacity utilization factor than onshore wind farms. So offshore wind farms allow for longer operating hours. Okay, so this is one thing. Capacity utilization factor is how long it can be utilized, how far it can be utilized. That is higher when it comes to offshore wind farms. Fine. So yes. So going to the next topic in environment ecology, very interesting. So let's see about environment ecology's July second week current affairs. So what are those? First is Cheng Kurunji. What is that? See, recent studies said that there is a need to save Cheng Kurunji from climate change. So what is this Cheng Kurunji? Let's see. See, Cheng Kurunji is a tree. It's a species endemic to the Agasthyamala Biosphere Reserve. See, this term is very important because this endemic term is a key for many questions when it comes to UPSC. Endemic means it is found in the natural habitat, only in that particular geographical location is called as endemic. Do you understand what is endemic means? Endemic means any species found in its natural habitat. In that particular geographical location is called as endemic. So I can say this. I'll just take some plant endemic. Let's take an animal. For example, let's take an animal which is endemic to particular geographical location. I'm taking that animal and I'm keeping it in the zoo. Is it not endemic to that place alone? Now you can ask, right? It is in the zoo. How can you say it is endemic only to that place? It is found in everywhere. No. Zoo is not a natural habitat, right? It is ex situ conservation. In situ conservation is what is called as endemic. It has to be present in that particular habitat in the natural form. So such that this Chengurunji is endemic to Agasthyamala Biosphere Reserve. So belonging to Anacardiaceae family, the tree was once abundant in the hills of southern parts of Aryan Kavu Pass in Kerala's Kollam district. The Shederne Wildlife Sanctuary derive its name from Chengurunji. It's a species endemic to Agasthyamala Reserve. So where it is present, Chengurunji means you have to know it is in Agasthyamala Reserve. It's also a tiger reserve. Okay, Agasthyamala Biosphere Reserve is also a tiger reserve. It is in Kerala, Kollam district. Fine. Okay. So what is this endemic? See, this Shendurne Wildlife Sanctuary derive its name from Gluta travancorea, a species endemic to Agasthyamala Tiger Reserve called as Chengurunji. So what is this Aryankavu Pass? It is belonging, Aryankavu Pass is also in this Kollam district, and Shola forest is very famous. Because Shola forest is very famous, it's one of the untouched by human beings. The soil is very rich in minerals. It is very rich in humus content. Okay. So what are the issues? It is very susceptible to climate change. What are the issue when it comes to it is very susceptible to climate change, and present condition of species is quite bad with low regeneration performance. So regeneration is when cut it has to regenerate, that is called as regeneration. Reproduction is different, regeneration is different, keep it in mind. Regeneration is when it comes to plant species, regeneration is very good compared to animals. Okay, if there is a tree, a very big tree, and the tree is cut as a half, but the root remains in the soil. In that case, even the complete upper part is cut, this shoot, only this small shoot will generate a complete tree again. That is regeneration. But now, because of some issue, the regeneration process is very bad. Most are not productive, generating negative trend in its population. Negative trend is the population is decreasing, that is negative trend. Majority of trees are old with poor flowering and fruiting rates, because you know very well that flowers and fruits are the important reproductive parts of plants. So regeneration is very less, and the productivity, that is flowering and fruit rates, are also very less. That is why this is in danger. This is going to become extinct. Suggestions for its regeneration: if we plant some young trees now, we will have flowering trees within next 25 years. 75 schools have been identified in the area where Chengurunji will be grown with the support of students. This is what is called as community involvement. Okay, this is what we also called as sustainable development. Fine. Save Chengurunji campaign is implemented in various areas under Achenkoil Forest Division. Okay, yes. So next topic, what is the next topic? We'll see. Sandfish. What is this sandfish? So recently it has been notified in the South Africa that sandfish are under the brink of extinction. Okay. So UPSC is now asking at least one question related to any species of animal. For example, which of the following are not birds? Which of the following is a bird has been one of the question asked in UPSC most of the times. Fine. So what is this sandfish? They are migratory freshwater fish found only in South Africa that can grow to over a half meter in length. Half a meter in length is almost 50 centimeters. Okay. They sport a pronounced downturned mouth which is used to graze algae off rocks, to grub in mud and sand on the stream bed. So it's mostly bottom feeder. Many of you might be seeing fishes, you have fishes in aquarium. See, when you are seeing bottom feeders, you can see this. You can find a fish's bottom feeder, how they'll have this kind of shape, and they will be having a flat downwards of body, it will be flat mostly, and the mouth will be placed here. Most of the fishes, the mouth will be placed here. So if this is a fish, mouth will be placed here. But for bottom feeders, you can see the mouth will be placed downwards. That is what is here. They are one of the largest grazers in South Africa's Doring River system. Okay, the river is called as Doring River system. They keep rivers clean and food web balanced. The river to be clean is very important because it will only have the carrying capacity. When the floor of river is not clean and the floor of river is carrying more debris, what happens is that the carrying capacity, the water carrying capacity of the river will reduce. But these fishes maintain the ecosystem balance. At the same time, they help in the increase of or the maintaining of rivers carrying capacity. They are also act as an umbrella species. Protecting them indirectly protects river ecosystem and other species. So it is their niche. This keep the rivers clean and food web balance is the niche of this particular sandfish. You know, niche, there is a unique function of every organism in an ecosystem, and that function can be carried only by that organism, not any other organism. That is called as niche. Okay. So this is why the sandfish is very, very, very important. Threats. What are the threats when it comes to sandfish? So migratory life cycle of the species that protect river system makes them vulnerable to the human linked impacts. Okay, fishing, and then juvenile and subadult sandfishes being lack of juvenile and subadult sandfish in the roaring river is an issue because aging populations are there. So aging populations might die anytime soon. So that is one problem. Okay, young sandfish surviving the precarious early stages life is also very tough because of many issues. It can be overfishing issue or pollution issue. There are so many problems. What are the conservation efforts? In 2018, Saving Sandfish project was initiated. The goal was to better understand the most pressing threats to the sandfish and restore the species to sustainable numbers. It has impressive spawning strategy. What are those? It migrates dozens, perhaps even hundreds of kilometers each year to reach its tributary spawning grounds. Okay, so it is for reproduction. Protecting the species therefore requires collaboration with landowners whose farms and lands are crossed by the rivers that sandfish inhabit it. So it is not just government's rule or NGO's rule. Everyone have to involve, because this fish is migrating throughout the length of the river. Okay, so that is one important thing here. Next is rewilding red pandas. So red pandas are one of the very interesting organism. It is found in the Singalia National Park, the highest protected area in West Bengal. It will get new denizens. So what are those? Is red pandas. So a zoo in picturesque Darjeeling Hills has started an ambitious program to augment the wild red panda population. See, this wild red panda population is very important because they are found in eastern Himalayas. Most of them are found in eastern Himalayas. Okay, in the first rewilding program of red pandas, Ailurus fulgens, it is their biological name. The Padmaja Naidu Himalayan Zoological Park has started an ambitious program to release 20 of this animal about 5 years to the forest. What they are doing? They are conserving it in the zoological park, zoos, and then they are releasing it into their natural habitats. That is how you protect an animal and increase the population. Okay, so this is one of the most important protection process. So about red panda, we will see about red panda, interesting animal. See, red panda, you can see in this picture, looks like fox. Okay, instead of looking like panda we think about one that comes in Kung Fu Panda, looks like a bear. No, it looks like a bit of fox. It's a small species. About red panda, so red panda is endangered. It is characterized as an endangered species as per IUCN Red List of Threatened Species. Very, very important. It's an endangered species. Okay, red pandas are shy, solitary and arboreal animals. Shy, solitary lives in singles. Okay, and arboreal animals are, they move through trees. Okay, considered an indicated species for ecological change. Indicated species means any change in the ecosystem and environment is indicated by them. If they are getting affected, it means there is something not good in the environment. That is called as indicated species. Corals are indicated species, especially they show us the effect of global warming, such that every ecosystem has some indicator species. The red panda, Ailurus fulgens, is a mammal native to eastern Himalayas and southwest China. Its wild population is estimated very less, only 10,000, and continues to decline due to habitat loss and fragmentation, poaching and inbreeding depression. Inbreeding depression is, what is inbreeding depression is very, very important. When the population declines, breeding takes place among, the variation among the partners reduces very much. Okay, so when what happens is that a small population starts breeding among themselves. When a small population starts breeding among themselves, there is something called as inbreeding depression, which means some recessive disease causing or some recessive defective genes through inbreeding become dominant, will be there among most of the population. So this, what happens is that particular gene can be recessive, or sometime one particular gene which is having a issue, disease causing gene, now spreads among the population after most of the inbreeding. So that, so sudden irritation, sudden change in that genetic factor, sudden disease, if that disease causing gene is triggered, or sometimes what I told you, like recessive genes sometimes become dominant, the entire population, most of the population will get affected of that particular issue. Okay, let's take a gene D. Some gene D is there. So there are parents, two parents. So generation number 1 male, generation number 2 female. So in this generation number 1, male is having the disease causing gene D. So what happens? It spreads among the population. This is second generation, third generation, fourth generation, keeps going. Now because of this gene present in the father, it is now present in every organism. Okay, so this gene is nothing but, let's take a cancer causing gene. Let's take. So what happens now, because it's a cancer causing gene, suddenly because of some environmental factor, this gene is triggered now. So the entire population has the same gene, and being present in the same environmental conditions, the entire population has this gene triggered, and the entire population now gets cancer. Do you understand what I am telling as inbreeding issue? This is the problem when it comes to inbreeding issue. But if these second generation are breeding with some other animals, instead of these two people, these two organism breeding, instead they are going for a different partners on different generation, this gene might disappear. But when it goes on, inbreeding is taking place for a very long time. The gene sustains in that particular population, and one environmental trigger or one any trigger or one mutation might cause issue to the entire population. That is called as inbreeding depression. Despite its name, it's not closely related to giant panda. That is one issue. The animal has been hunted for meat and fur because the fur is red in color, which is attractive in the market. Okay, besides illegal capture for pet trade. Pet trade is one of the most, pet trade is one of the most brutal form of trade. Okay, you see birds kept in cage is one of the worst thing. Birds are meant to fly, but their wings are cut and they are kept in the cages. They are sold in cages. That too, the cages are like about 10 birds are kept in the same cage where only one bird can survive. Just imagine, in the 10 birds, they easily start developing diseases. They become malnutrition. They become stressed, mentally stressed, which lead to so many issues in their gene level. Okay. An estimated of 14,500 animals are left in the wild across Nepal, Bhutan, India, China and Myanmar. About 5,000 to 6,000 red pandas are estimated to be present in 4 Indian states. Very, very important. What are those? I told you they are found in the eastern Himalayas. Andhra Pradesh, Meghalaya, Sikkim and West Bengal. The diminishing habitat is a major threat to the species, which is a very selective feeder and survives on species of bamboo. That is why the red panda, because when the species of bamboo are facing threat, they also have threat. Okay, yes. So going to the next topic, forest conservation rules 2022. So what are these forest conservation rule 2022? The new forest conservation rules violate the Forest Rights Act of 2006. Okay, so what is that? Let's see. So Congress on Wednesday wrote to the National Commission for the Scheduled Tribe to urge the central government to withdraw them in the public interest. So what is that? Why is it violating Forest Rights Act? See, what are the key provisions related to forest conservation rules? It is constituted an advisory committee, a regional empowered committee at each of the integrated regional offices, and a screening committee at the state, union, territory at government level. So advisory committee, a regional empowered committee, and then screening committee at every state and union territory. So role of the advisory committee is restricted to advice. The name itself suggests it's an advisory committee. It can recommend to the government. Most of the committees only have advisory role. Okay, that we all know that most of the committees only have advisory role to the central government. And for what they advise? Obviously, they advise for the conservation of forests to the central government. The Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change has constituted a project screening committee in each state for the initial review of proposal involving diversion of forest lands. So the 5-member committee will meet at least twice every month, and will advise the state governments on the project in a time-bound manner. So all linear projects, so what all they involve for roads, highways, anything where forest lands are take diversion and are given to revenue, come under this provision. Okay, projects involving forest land up to 40 hectares and those that have project a use of forest land having a canopy density to 0.7, irrespective of their extent of the purpose of survey, shall be examined in the integrated regional office. So states are given the responsibility for settling forest rights of the forest dwellers. Very, very, very important. Okay, so this can be a question. Who has the responsibility of settling forest rights to the forest dwellers is state. According to the Forest Right Act of 2006, the states have the responsibility of settling forest right and allowing diversion of forest land. So if state already has over 2/3 areas under green cover or over 1/3 area under the forest cover, then the compensatory afforestation could be taken in other states where the cover is less than 20%. Okay, so the state already has over 2/3 of area under green cover or 1/3 of area under forest, then the compensatory afforestation has to be taken place in some other state. So what I am telling is, let's take some land, 20 hectares of land, forest land is given to some projects, developmental projects. So there is something called as compensatory afforestation. What is compensatory afforestation is, this 20 hectares of land of forest is now diverted to something else. So this deforested area has to be afforested somewhere. The forest has to be planted somewhere, which is what we call it as compensatory afforestation. So when it comes to compensatory afforestation, let's take a state 1 is where the developmental project taking place. Now in this state, if this state is already having 2/3 of green cover or 1/3 of its land is under forest, instead of doing this compensatory afforestation for this developmental process taking place in state 1, they go to some other state 2 where this is not there, where simply saying, so one state there is a developmental project taking place, but that state is having a good forest land, good green cover. So for afforestation what they are doing is, they are just doing it in some other state where the afforestation is actually needed. Instead of doing in the same state where the forest status is good, they are going to some other state, which is kind of nice. Okay. So what are the concerns? The new forest conservation rules do not mention the earlier requirement of attaining Gram Sabha's no objection certificate before diverting the land for a project. You understand? Earlier, if the forest land has to be diverted, there has to be a no objection certificate obtained from the Gram Sabha. But now this forest conservation rule is not having this, did not mention this point. Fine, this is statement number 1. Rule states unequivocally that compliance with Forest Right Act is not at all required for the final approval of forest diversion given by the Environment Ministry. Do you understand? So this compliance with the Forest Rights Act, the certificate is not needed. That is what is mentioned now. They also allow forest rights to be settled after the final approval of forest clearances has been granted by the center. So this is indirectly stating that the center is trying to take control over the state's forest status, which is bad. Do you understand? So which means that the center, without considering the forest right, without asking no objection certificate from that particular Gram Sabha, can grant forest diversion approval. Okay, that is what this forest rule conservation rule states. That is why the Congress is giving request to reconsider. Okay.